I started a meetup 2 years ago, almost to the day. 6 people came that day, and DJ was one of them. So first off, give a big round of applause to the CEO of my company, Blue Spruce. I want to tell you why I picked these 5 people for this panel. And I'll start with the closest to me, Siva. I met Siva 3 months ago. And he's one of the best guys you'll ever meet in your whole life. He is very involved in his engineering company. I think he works 70 hours a week. Is that true or not? 70 hours a week. He went 4 years ago to 3 years, 4 years? 5 years ago to a seminar to learn how to do multifamily syndication, and he said, I just want to do what I'm doing and passively invest. So he's on this panel for many reasons. One is to show that there's multiple ways to get involved into multifamily if you want to do multifamily. You don't have to be the operator. You can still keep your own job if you want to. And right here, my friend Ike Mutabana has a podcast, Side Business Show, and a very, very good guy. And I need to be cautious how I say this. How I say this is very, very, very important, because he doesn't raise money for other people's deals. He raises money for his deals. He just doesn't start the deal. He's not the one who starts the deal, but it becomes his deal. He raises equity for his deal, and that has been a very easy, I wouldn't say easy, a seamless way to get involved into multifamily doors. And then we have Veena, who has an interesting story, and I think it's okay to be completely 100% honest. And I hope you're okay with that too.
No, what are you about to say?
4 months ago or so, Veena posted something into several multifamily groups. And it said, I have IRA money that I need to put into other people's deals. If you're a real syndicator, call me so I can place my capital with you. How many people do you think called her?
One or none.
Well, I definitely did. I think she got a good turnout. And in all fairness, she did have the capital, she did want to place it. But can you think of the background, amazing part of that, being able to connect with people who are actually syndicating deals quickly. And then to offer, if you don't have your own deal and you need your own credibility, you can raise money for a deal that we do together. I am finding the deals in Jacksonville and other places, and we can do this together. And to me, I thought that was brilliant. And I felt like you needed to learn more about that. Mark and Tamil are some of my favorite friends. Recently, they were in Denver. We went to Ruth Chris. That was fun. And our conversations were very insightful. The way that they think about business is holistic, partnering. They care more about helping other people grow with them. And so you're going to learn a lot from them today, and I'll give it to DJ and the panel.
Hello, hello, hello. How many folks here are from out of town? Okay, so you may know that Denver in recent years has been growing like a weed. That's a good joke. Come on, laugh. So you may not know, in a recent the elections, the municipal elections, they passed a law. We can only have events on days when there's massive snowstorms. So people won't keep moving here so much. So fortunately, I was afraid I was going to wake up with 6 inches of snow on the ground, but so far so good. So maybe the weather gods are on our side today. So I'm really excited to do this panel, in particular because I love partnering. Adam alluded to startups. I did tech startups for 20 years. Let me tell you about tech startups. If you go to an event like this, at a tech startup event, there's a lot of people, there's a parade of people who come up and they tell you how they're going to change the world. And they're going to connect people or make it possible to take pictures of your food. What I love about real estate events, everyone comes here and says, we're going to make some money. Let them change the world. Let's make some money. The great thing about tech, though, is it's very collaborative. I had an internet account back in 1992. So I've watched the internet grow for a long time, and I count myself lucky that I remember what it was like before the internet. I don't know how kids today are going to cope. I can't deal with it. So that's enough about me. Let's get into the partnering. One thing I will toot my horn a little bit. One of the handouts you have is a big flow chart. Now we made this because we had some partnerships go badly. And I'm not going to step you through the whole thing. We just decided just the other day, I said, hey, why don't we hand this out to people, give them some value. But basically we found there's some discrete parts to a partnership, from the first time you talk to someone to closing a deal. And at those discrete parts, there are some decisions that need to be made. There's some analysis that has to be done. And we were kind of flying by the seat of the pants a little bit. So we decided, me being a systems guy, let's systematize this process. And so I'm not going to walk through it, but if anyone wants to grab me afterward and have me chat about it, I'm happy to explain it. But I hope at least you'll get a sense of the partnership process can be very rewarding, but there are some minefields there. And it pays to be aware of those minefields in advance so that you're not going like we've been a few times, what do we do? What do we do? So let's, what I'm going to do is we're going to take some questions from you all, but I have a few questions, just some icebreakers to get us going here. And I'm going to ask them of the panel, and let's have at it. So the first question, I'm going to throw this out to anyone, is just how do you find partners? How do you go about finding someone to work with you? Yeah, Siva.
I would say finding partners in this business is absolutely essential.
Can you put your mic up a little bit more?
This is a team sport. Any business that is capital intensive is a team sport. If you're going to do it by yourself, you're mistaken. Eventually you'll get there, it's a team sport. So early on, you figure that out and you start looking for partners. Figure out what you're good at, find other people that are good at to make that circle so that you have a business, you do your part, the rest of them do their part. Always do that.
I would say by having something to add value to somebody, if you have something of value somebody wants, people will flock to you. But as far as meeting them, it's events and social media for us. I met a lot of people actually at events where we partner with them for deals.
So we've had people actually approach us even on social media about trying to partner with us. So people can't approach you if they don't know who you are. So if you're not on social media, you might want to consider getting on it just so people can start learning who you are, start following key people. If all you do is follow key people that have good information out there, follow their posts, like their stuff that you actually like, then they'll kind of start following you. Then you'll get more people being drawn to you. But if they don't know who you are, they can't ask you to partner.
So they've all spoken more to like the JV side of partnerships. So I'll speak more from like the corporate structure. So I have 3 partners in my company. And I would say the most important thing to finding partners that you're going to do every deal with is finding partners who complement your weaknesses, right? So all of us are not good at everything, but we're good at 1 or 2 areas where we really shine, and then there's overlap in the other areas. So I'd say find partners who have the strengths that you don't have, and then together you guys can be a really powerful force together.
Who here is good at finding deals? All right. Who here is good at due diligence? Who here is good at raising money? Who here is good at negotiation? Who here is just here to learn? Not sure they know any of these things. That's okay too. The point is, I'm not good at negotiation. I hate it. Adam is really good at it. So I wanted to find someone who's good at it, and you don't have to have all the skills yourself. Figure out what you're good at and make sure people know that you're good at it. So let's segue to the next question. So, and actually I mentioned negotiation, so maybe Tamil, you can talk to us about how you, give us a few tips on negotiation.
So we've had several different partners in general, and when we first started, it was 50-50, right? Like, we're going to go in and we're purchasing it together, and then we found out, well, what if we want to sell? There's nothing in the contract that makes our partner sell. So sometimes you actually learn for the next partnership what to do or what not to do, what to have on in your contract. So now we know to negotiate, somebody's got to have that 51%. Somebody's got to be able to control when it sells, maybe when you refinance. So that's one aspect that you would negotiate. I think you have to be direct, because if you're afraid to hurt somebody's feelings and things aren't being said, that even in marriage partnerships, right? Things get left on the table, people get hurt feelings, and then you start acting irrationally and not logically in your partnerships. So be direct, maybe even talk to other people who have bad experiences with partners, and then figure out what you need to put in your contracts. So we have a good friend who is an attorney. His longtime time partner, 13 years, they put everything in their contracts ahead of time in case the marriage goes bad. You plan for the worst and you hope for the best. Marriage is kind of the same way. Although you hope the D word never comes on the table, but partnerships, very, very important that you put everything on the table just in case, and you just hope for the best.
Vina, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you actually covered it. You go into it planning the divorce before you actually have to get divorced. One of the things that we put into our contracts is we actually don't allow anybody to do just sweat equity. And I don't care if you're writing a check for like $100, but you have to put skin in the game. And I think that it really changes the psychology, and just the entire dynamic changes when everybody has skin in the game. Of course, you have to put sweat equity in also, but you also have to write a check. And that can be, it just has to be significant to the other person. Like, that is what we look for in our contracts.
Yeah, I think one of the things I would add to all of these amazing points is that it's important in a negotiation to also look at adding value to all the players. It can't be a zero-sum game. So you want to make sure that while you're trying to get the best deal for yourself, you're also taking into consideration what the other person wants, and including that as part of the overall conversation. No one should be left at the end of a deal feeling that they got a raw deal out of it.
Yeah, and I'll add, just as a basic matter for LLCs, I've, both with real estate and with tech, I've created a bunch of LLCs over the years. And I actually have a checklist of just some really basic stuff that you should make sure you cover. Like, what happens if one of you dies, right? It's not fun to think about, but it could happen. Who's going to inherit that ownership? What rights do they have? What happens if one of you just checks out after a year? Says, you know what, I'm happy with my 45% ownership, just send me the checks, and they're not doing any work anymore. Those are things that you should consider, and I'm scared of what's going to happen, but just send me an email to dj@realbluespruce.com, and now I have your email address. And I will send, I probably won't send it one by one. I'll probably just make sure to announce to all of you, here's my list of things to consider. This was given to me by an attorney. It's not a legal document. It's just a list of questions maybe you should be asking when you're first putting this LLC together, or LP if you happen to do that. So let's, that's actually a good segue there is Ike. What are some of the legal issues that you should be thinking about when you're striking a partnership?
So apart from the legal issues that Tammy already mentioned, right, about how to structure and ensure that, sort of eventualities are factored in, you also want to think about how each partner plays a role and ensure that each partner's role is commensurate with what is required from a legal perspective. So as an example, a lot of the work, as Adam Julia mentioned, I do is I don't find the deal, but I come in as a partner helping to make that deal actualize. But as part of that, I cannot come in as a person who simply raises money and walks away from it.
Mm-hmm.
That would basically directly violate the SEC regulations around broker finance or kind of,
Broker-dealer?
broker-dealer.
Yes. Hey,
So-
does anyone here know what a broker-dealer is and what that means? Why don't you just talk about that for a
Sure.
second?
So, under the FINRA regulations, there are people who have gone through licensing process that allows them to represent deals that are not their own and raise money for them and get a fee in exchange for that. So they're basically paid agents in a sense. And you really, if you're going to be part of a deal structure where you're not in that category, you cannot go ahead and just represent a deal without being truly part of that deal. So what does being truly part of a deal mean? And again, not a lawyer, so that disclaimer is here, but one of the key things is ensuring that if one of your primary roles is raising money, that you're also working on something on that deal that is beyond raising money. Now that could be managing investor relationships. It could be representing your investors on the deal to ensure that their interests are taken care of. It's almost like, think of a board of directors, right, where the chairman is the deal sponsor, the one who found the deal and is leading it, but you're one of the directors representing shareholder interest. So you play an active role in some form or fashion.
Yeah, and I would add, having done this for a while, sometimes people come out of the woodwork and say, I can get that deal done for you. I can get you $1 million if you just give me 10% you give me $100,000. And my first question is, oh, so you have a Series 7's license then, right? And the answer is always no. So if someone's coming to you with that, first of all, half the time I would say more than half the time they can't actually get it. They have a friend who has some money, they think they can talk into it. But if they're just sort of offering, give me some, a chunk of whatever you raise, that is almost certainly illegal. And just make sure you don't say yes to something. Never do it from desperation. If you really need the money, that's not a good way to run your business. Because usually when you make decisions out of desperation, you find yourself more desperate later, regretting that decision. Did you want to say any more about legal?
Yeah, no, I think that is one of the key things that you have to keep in mind. And of course, the other part is the deal structure itself and how the private placement memorandum, which really lays out for passive investors how they are going to invest. It needs to clearly lay out all of the assumptions, the risks. We actually have had a situation where we've had a private placement memorandum drafted by a lawyer who wasn't as familiar with syndications as he should have been, and several things were either left out or not worded correctly, which were in fact pointed out by investors. So that's a very difficult situation to be in. So probably never going to go that lawyer again, but it's a lesson learned about making sure that your legal documentation is really solid.
So I actually had a question for you two. How many people here do this with your spouse? Yeah. What's it like? What are the pitfalls of a spousal partnership?
I'm going to let her go first, and I'll rebuttal.
The wife's always right.
So I'll say we've been married 23 years, and I like to tell people the first 20, 21 years kind of sucked. And it's because neither one of us knew how to communicate. Both partners have to know how to communicate well in order for it to be a good partnership. So it really wasn't until the last 2 or 3 years that I was more knowledgeable, more confident with my skills, being able to find certain things on properties, and then finding what I was good at, right? Once I got confident in what I was good at, he kind of saw that like, oh, okay, she actually knows what she's talking about, and let me run with what I was good at, and I let him run with what he's good at most of the time, even though I question some things. But it's just knowing where you fit, knowing where you're, if the two of you think exactly the same, one of you is unnecessary. So you really need to learn to find your strengths and weaknesses and work together, because then you're stronger together.
I would say one other quick point would be, don't devalue somebody else's skill set. whether it's your spouse or someone, a partner. So I'm more on the technical side, you know, CPA background, IT background, things like that. So Tammy's much better at things like marketing and branding that I don't really like doing and I don't really want to do, but she can do it very well. For me, at first I probably would have diminished that value, but I'd say just don't do that. Now with that said, I would say as far as partnerships, not so much with a spouse, because you can't really probably change that, but with doing partnerships with other people, I would put a value on what each person's doing, and I actually personally would do it per deal. So having these overall 50-50 partnerships, I think, can lead to a lot of issues, frankly. I think doing it deal by deal, if Dino found the deal, he gets a certain percentage of the general partnership that I didn't do, because I didn't find the deal. So structuring things like that, from an overall partner perspective, I think is good, but from a spouse perspective, it's been really good for us, frankly, because we've learned to, as Tamil mentioned, communicate, but also to value each other's opinion that we probably didn't do before.
So, so next time someone thinking about marriage counseling, we'll just tell them to go into real estate together. That way you can actually make money. Or you can just get it done, get it over with. Yes,
I
yes.
want to add one little thing. As you are starting, if you're going to syndicate a deal, you're going to be a manager. If you're going to be a manager, one of the things I would suggest you do, run it like a business. Figure out what are you going to do, what do you need help with from others, and then set aside certain percentage of the manager side so that this is typical of what I do, so that you're not going into every deal trying to figure out what am I going to do here, what am I going to do here. You have that. You set that expectations for anybody who's going to help you. Then it becomes a business, you know, and you codify it in your mind, you write it down, whatever you have to do, you have that done. I think that's very helpful. I've given some feedback to some of the folks, and that helped them really do business much better. As I said, it's a team sport.
Yes, it absolutely is. So this actually, I can't wait to hear the answer to this question, because one of the things, before I got into real estate, I just thought it was, yeah, you put down 20%, you buy a property, rinse, wash, repeat. Right? I just thought, well, that's how it works. And I like to create. I'm a very creative person. Part of the reason I did tech startups is because you're building something new that maybe no one has ever seen before. And Adam's meetup that I mentioned is called, I think it's called the Creative Real Estate Meetup, or it's a Creative Real Estate Podcast is what it is. But the meetup focuses on creative strategies to do in real estate. And I went, as he said, to the very first one. By the way, it was a snowstorm. I mean, it was coming down. And Adam himself almost canceled it. And I went and I met just a few people, but Adam started explaining some of the different ways that you can structure deals. And I thought, holy cow, there's a whole lot more to it than 20-25% down. There's a lot of ways you can structure it. And when you get into larger deals, it really opens the box of potential ways to think about how you structure a deal. And what I've told people who are new to this, they think about buying a property. Let's go buy a property, or I don't have enough money to buy a property. And what I tell them is, you're not buying a property, you're manufacturing a deal. You're manufacturing a deal. You have raw materials. Some of it's money, some of it's sweat equity, some of it's expertise, some of it's debt, and you're manufacturing a deal. And so I wanted to ask you guys about maybe some of the more creative approaches you've seen. I know you've done some creative things.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, typically almost everybody, I think, gets into these multifamily deals, which is the space I live in, and thinks of syndication. So I encountered this gentleman who I'd known for a little bit of time, but we talked about a deal that he was working on in North Carolina, 62 unit, and he needed to raise 1.2 million for that. And you know, he'd done a great job of finding the good deal and getting it under contract and all of the due diligence work, but now he had 10 days left to close and had raised just $200,000. So it was too short a time for me to get involved and work with him on you know, syndicating that deal in the way he was trying to do it. What I did help him out with is I had an investor who was looking to do a 1031 exchange, but it was too late.
Does everyone here know what 1031 exchange is? Okay.
Okay, great. It was, unfortunately, because it already started syndication, we couldn't really change the deal structure at that point. So what we did was, I had the investor loan him the $1 million so that he could close on the deal as quickly as possible. And then we sort of redeeded the property under a tenant in common for the 1031 exchange investor to put his money through that vehicle, pay back that loan to him, and get the deal into a joint venture kind of a situation. So lots of different ways that you can skin the cat.
Yeah, and I'll say we just, on the topic of 1031s, we had a deal where we were just stuck. We were 90% there with the equity, and we just could not, we were just having a hard time getting that last 10%. And you know, when things get tough, you start to get creative. So I started reaching out to people who I knew were not investors, but who may know some people. And one of them was a loan broker in the Midwest. And I just said, do you know anyone who might be able to close this for us? Sure enough, he had a friend who brought the exact amount we needed in the form of a 1031 exchange. So that's a very powerful tool in the toolbox as well. One of the questions I had here, we may have already touched on this, but Veena, you'd mentioned, what are some of the things you can do to manage the partner relationship on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so we're very involved with all of our partnerships. Anybody that syndicates for us, we actually, there's a couple tools we use that I'm really excited about that we've started implementing a lot more. With the biggest tool being Slack. Have you guys heard of Slack? Does anyone use that channel? Yes. It is one of the best tools that we use across the industry, and it's like super cheap. It's like $5 a user a month, and worth every penny. So
they have a free version as well. So
oh yeah, they do have a free version. It's not as robust once you start getting really into syndication, but for beginning, yes, the free one works great. So anyway, we open a channel for every single syndication partner that we work with. So you have access to all 4 of the Enzo partners all in one channel, and so we use that to upload documents. We take like quick votes. We get a lot of response, and it cuts down the text messages and emails that go back and forth between partners. What we've also recently done is we open up a channel for our property managers as well. So regional on down are all on the Slack channel with the owners of the asset, or the deal sponsors in this case. And so anything that happens in real time, we see that and we can react quickly. We can decide if we need to hop on a call. So it's just been a really powerful tool for us. It's cut down on the need for multiple channels of communication. And I'd say like that's the most powerful one that we've found.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We've played around with using it, but we haven't thought to actually get our partners involved in using it.
Yeah, you have to have buy-in from everybody, because if only like 1 or 2 people use it, it's not very useful. But if everybody's using it, I mean, you and I have a Slack channel on one of the deals we've worked on together, and you had access to all of us. We had access to you. It was really nice. Questions can be answered quickly, especially when you're talking to investors. A lot of times they'll have a question that you might not be able to answer because a different partner possesses that knowledge. So I can be on an investor call and at the same time slacking my partner saying, hey, what is XYZ, and get an immediate response back.
That is really useful. I'm going to start doing that. So do we have any, anyone want to share any home runs or horror stories?
I'll share a horror story because it's probably more beneficial for people.
Sure.
We really had a number of home runs as well, but horror story is, I'll go into all the details. We had a partner that already owned a property. It's already set up with one other partner. We bought that other partner out, so we actually bought into the existing LLC. Don't ever, 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 ever do that. So long story short, he was not really performing. He was the property manager on it. He already owned the property. And after about 2 months, we found out that he really wasn't performing and did some things he shouldn't be doing. We had a board of directors set up, which was good. So we had 5 board members. We kicked him out, reduced his equity as well. And then lo and behold, after he was out, we had all these invoices coming in from about 8 months before we even bought into the property. Not for tens of thousands of dollars, but for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Story is he's in with the Korean Mafia as well. So the story, it's like a reality TV show basically, but and litigation based on that and things like that. So two main, and there's a lot more to the story, but 2 main things I would say: don't ever buy into LLC. A lot of people do it, save on taxes. Don't do that. I would recommend you not do that. And then I would never have a partner be the property manager myself, ever. So
that actually is a segue to one question I wanted to bring up, which is about due diligence. So part of the reason we built this flow chart is we realized we were not doing a very good job on the due diligence. We're fine on the property. We've got that dialed. But the partner, you know, you meet someone, they seem like a good guy, maybe they even have some, a really nice bio and background, or a gal, not just a guy. But it pays to do a little more digging on them. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Maybe how to do it, or what to think about when you're doing it?
Yeah, I've been on a deal, and I've been. Sorry, it has to be really close, right? Well, I've been on a deal, several deals. Everything goes well. The one deal that happens, that one of the guys that I've talked to him. He looks really nice, talks really nice, but there are some issues associated with them, right? You really need to know. One of the things you have to do as a disciplined investor, if you're going to be partnering with someone, you really have to do a financial background check, a criminal background check, and it's hard. You have to tell them, are you ready for this? You can do the same on me. And you have to do SEC violation checks, right? You don't hear all this because you hear the person, everything is going well, and ask him all his past deals, what has he done, what has she done, and how it worked out. Can I call some of the investors that you worked with and talk to them? It's really important because you're going to literally marry this person and do the deal together, right? You want to be absolutely sure you and that person are on the same page and you have checked out all of the background. And if you don't do that, you will wait to regret it.
We actually learned almost too late. We did some due diligence on a partner, and we were pretty far down the path. And we started talking to people and learning maybe this isn't the best partner for us. And Siva is actually one of the people we called. And the best advice he gave actually came from your son, right?
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, well. So we were ready to move forward. We were like ready to go. And I said, Siva gave us some really good information. One thing about communications, it's easy to communicate when things are going well. Some people don't like to communicate when things aren't going so well. And so you need to make sure your partner and you are committed to, hey, we're going to give you all the facts, bad news as well as good, right? So that's important in communications. But Siva said, I know you guys probably want to do this deal, but we were at the airport and my son, was complaining about how the flight was delayed, why can't we get on the plane and take off? And his son said, it's better to be on the ground wishing you were in the sky than to be in the sky wishing you were on the ground. And that pretty much did it. We're out. We're done with this. It's going to be painful. It's going to be an awkward conversation, but I don't want to be up in that plane wishing I were on the ground. So I'm not sure how much time we have, but I want to make sure we get some audience questions. I don't think we have mics around, so if anyone wants to raise their hand, or maybe Adam. Adam's gonna run around. And does anyone have any questions to get to this awesome panel we got up here? Oh, come on. Yes, here's one.
So how do you have your ducks in a row in the sense, like when you raise like $3 million, $5 million, like how do you want to have that kind of mindset to have these things like, structured in a way that you can do this like for bigger deals, right? Like say, I did like a max of $1 million raise, but like how to go to the next level to $3 million, $5 million.
So the question is, how do you go to the next level? Maybe you do a small one and now you have an appetite for something bigger. Does anyone want to jump in with that?
I would just say real quick, partner with someone who's done it before. If you think you're going to go from 1 to 5 million, that's a big jump. So if someone's done it before, the people out there that just raise money, that's all they do. Ike mentioned, for example, we have other people that have done it in the past. So you might have to give a little more of the deal to do that, but it's well worth it because you get to do a bigger deal by doing that. So it's a mindset for sure, but don't be, we tell people, hey, go big. And people in our group they go really big. Guy has a $39 million deal right now, right? He's working on. But end of the day, you need to be realistic too and know your limits and have somebody, a safeguard to help you through it.
Having a partner is great for that. I mean, they've seen it before, and it really builds your confidence to be able to have someone to bounce these ideas off.
Can I add to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. One of the biggest things that we found has helped us go like over that 1 million to like the $5, $7, $10 million mark is having processes in place. So we have a lot of systems. We put a lot of time and energy into developing processes and systems that make it seamless. So whenever we go into something, we do it with the idea of scalability in mind, right? So raising $1 million should theoretically, all the process and like the hard work should be the same as raising 10 million or 100 million. It shouldn't change because the processes should be the same. So we invest into software, we invest a lot of time and energy up front, making sure that those are seamless, so that when we're going from 1 million to 2 million to 5 million, it's still a process, and all of us know the cadence on our team. We set expectations up front, and we each tackle different aspects of the raise.
How many folks here are good at the tech stuff? How many here hate the tech stuff? All right, now we got some partnerships in the making already. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We have time for two.
So,
thanks for being up there. It's awesome for you guys to do this. What's your biggest challenge that you're dealing with investors or finding deals right now? And if you could like wave a magic wand and fix X, what would X be?
For me, it's time. I mean, I think that's true for everybody, right? It's having enough time to do everything. And that's what we're actually in the process of doing, is implementing systems to kind of free up some of that time for us. But also finding really good quality partners. You know, this is a great time to make money in real estate. If you're not making money, you're really, really messing up right now. But we're coming up on, you know, a softening of the market, a downshift, and so finding those partners that can sustain through a downturn is something that we've been really focusing on. So if I can wave a magic wand, that's probably what I'd be doing, is waving it for the right relationships to put our team in a better position for the 2019, 2020, 2021 market and plan out 3 years from now.
If I can just add to what Veena just said, I think one of the key things that has helped me in my business is the relationships. And to be honest, that is one piece of the pie that is not scalable. You can scale systems, you can scale processes, you cannot scale relationships. But at the same time, it's the relationships that have allowed me to get to a point where I have 75 to 80% repeat investors in almost every one of my deals. And not just that, that is what allows me to build those relationships with investors and come to me saying, look, I've got $1 million or $2 million sitting in a 1031. Can you help me place it? So it's not just about me bringing deals to them, but then providing them value when they need it. So those relationships also make a huge difference.
I would agree with him, but one thing is that relationships always take you to a higher place. And you have to nurture the relationship. And it's not simply getting to know somebody, hi, and then forgetting them. You need to really understand who are the key people that you want to have a relationship with and nurture that relationship over time.
What's the most important thing about the relationship?
What?
What's the most important thing about the relationship?
For me, the most important thing about a relationship is that we are having the same outlook on life, right? If you're in a place, right, and they're in a different place, then that's not bad. It's just different. You know, that relationship has to have a different look and feel to it, right? But if you are going someplace, you want to align with people who are going in the same direction. And so that is really the time you want to spend to figure out who are they, where are they going, where am I going, are we going to be able to add value? The synergistic effect of that, 2 plus 2 is going to be 8. It's not going to be 4. That's what you're looking for. And when you do that, you add value to them and they add value to you, that actually is scalable somewhat, because they go tell other people, hey, I got a great guy. You got to meet him. I got a great guy. You got to work with them. So you can scale it if you do it right.
yeah,
And if it changes, you tell them, I'm changing direction. Plan for the change in direction. Don't just drop it on them and leave. That's not good.
I would say too, it is a long-term business. That's what I love about this actually. It's not with tech, it's let's do this for 2 years and hope Google buys us, you know? But even, you know, the best, I'm not a super good networker. I'm an introvert. I don't love to go to parties and meet people. But my most successful tech company, I met a guy on the job. We knew each other for 2 days. And then I got laid off. But I knew he was talented. He was a graphic designer. I was like, this is the kind of guy I would want to work with. And so I just kept in touch very lightly over the years with, friends on LinkedIn, that I'd like he would post photos on Flickr. 7 years later, we ended up partnering and made a lot of money together. So just because you meet someone here, I mean, we do multifamily. I know a lot of folks who do trailer parks. I'm not interested in doing trailer parks right now. 5 to 7 years, I might be. And so I want to keep those relationships warm as well, because you never know what's going to happen. Do we have one more question?
Let's do one more. I saw a couple hands on this side.
How are you doing? I'm Oliver with McKinsey Construction. From a partnering standpoint, how do you dig into the due diligence process? Do you just, when you're partnering with someone who has a deal and they've already done the due diligence, do you just go with their numbers? Do you actually go and vet all their numbers?
You want to vet their numbers without
I do most of the underwriting back again myself using my own model. And if it's possible, I go visit the property, do my own due diligence. I may not do the due diligence to the extent where I hire my own inspectors and stuff. That's a little overkill, but I certainly would verify. It's like a trust but verify situation.
But even with that, you mentioned about the due diligence, you can ask for their due diligence report. The lender also is going to do a PCA report. You can ask for that. So you're not going to maybe go spend another $10,000 for due diligence to get those reports. But from a numbers perspective, yeah, you definitely want to get the T12 rent roll, everything else you possibly can get, and run your own numbers from scratch.
Yeah, that's what we do that too. We always underwrite in-house, no matter who the deal sponsor is. And because a lot of times our assumptions that we make are a lot different than what other operators will make. So if it doesn't fit in our model and the standards that we underwrite to, then we don't do the deal. So I totally agree with that. And we also have our own contractors walk the properties with us when possible to take kind of a step further. And no deal sponsor is going to be upset by that, because if you find something they didn't see, they'll want to know about it. So it adds value. So don't ever be afraid to do more due diligence than the sponsor itself.
The one exception I would say to that potentially is that the seller might not want you walking interiors again, and they're going to be upset if you ask to do it because you look like you're disorganized. So if you have someone you're a partner with, have them come with you for due diligence, but don't ask to walk all the interiors again, in my opinion, because they'll...
Oh yeah, definitely not all the interiors, but like we do, roofs, parking lots, structurally, like kind of things you can do from the outside, but I totally agree with that. You don't want to piss off your seller.
Yeah, and one thing we do when we're in this early stage of we haven't signed the deal with the partner yet. We haven't decided if we're going to work together, but we're looking at the numbers, and we're doing just sort of getting a feel does this make sense for what we do? What we tell them is, early on we say, look, we're going to assume everything you tell us is 100% true, right? Then we're going to sign a term sheet. Then we're going to go verify everything you said is 100% true. And that sort of sets the expectations that in the negotiation stage, we don't want that sort of muddy in the waters. We want to say, well, what if the roof is bad and you were wrong, and now we want 25% instead of 20%. We want to sort of negotiate from a clean perspective, and then when due diligence does find some problems, now we've sort of all agreed that this is the starting point that we all agree to, but that's not necessarily the ending point. That might change how these numbers work in the end. Terrific. Well, I appreciate you all giving us your time and attention for this, and I especially appreciate our panel for sharing their wisdom and insights.